It's been 5 years since Formula 1 has been to Shanghai for the Chinese Grand Prix, and now it is back on the calendar, and what a way for it to return on its 20th anniversary. Hello everybody, welcome to my review of the Chinese Grand Prix. And the other reason why it's a very special weekend, because it's the first weekend of the sprint races, and there's also been another change to the sprint format. On Fridays there will be a practice, then a sprint qualifying, and then on Saturday there will be a sprint race, then normal qualifying, and on Sunday just the normal race. And let's start with sprint quali, and let's start with the biggest surprise of all, the Stake F1 team. Not just the first time they were able to get both cars into Q2, but also into Q3. What a way for them to do it at Guan Yu Zhou's home Grand Prix. That is amazing, and you could hear the crowd cheering for Guan Yu Zhou. What an epic moment that was. A great effort for Guan Yu Zhou and Valtteri Bottas. Sadly they can only match 10th and 9th, but what a result. But predicting who'll be in pole in the sprint quali was crazy. We all thought it'd be Max Verstappen, but there was a lot of other drivers stepping up to try and get pole position. Like Fernando Alonso, he did a phenomenal drive and still driving like he is still young. I mean, how does he do it? I have no idea. Lewis Hamilton, he looked like he was hoping to get his first sprint pole, but it didn't work out, and he was so close to getting it. He was only able P2. And Lando Norris, he was able to do a mega lap. He got 1.3 seconds quicker than Lewis Hamilton. And how? That is an epic. That is like Ayrton Senna lap time back in the 1980s. How was that possible? And do you know what would have been really upsetting? If his time was taken off, if he was going over track limits. I mean, his time was taken off for a bit, and I felt so heartbroken thinking that Lando Norris lost that epic lap time. But for some reason there's been a misunderstanding, because for some reason people thought, well, somebody thought that he went over track limits and the time got deleted for no reason, but he didn't go over track limits and the time was put up. So why say his time was deleted when he didn't go over track limits? Weird, isn't it? Do you know what? Should track limits be a thing in qualifying? Because the thing is, they don't gain much in some places, and I think that's something that Formula 1 really needs to think about. And at the start of the sprint race, Lando Norris, he had trouble with the start. He was at the side of Lewis Hamilton, and then he went off track and lost a lot of places. And poor Lando Norris, for all the epic effort he made in quali, I thought he was going to get a sprint win, but it never happened. But Lewis Hamilton took the lead after such horror from a very bad start of his career. He's never had a start that bad in his F1 career before, and what a way to make up by leading the sprint race. Until Max Verstappen was able to overtake Lewis Hamilton and retake the lead. And what can I say? It's what happens in Formula 1. Max Verstappen takes the lead from Lewis Hamilton, and Lewis Hamilton cannot do anything. And Max was going like 1 second quicker than Hamilton per lap, and that Mercedes has no chance of winning the race. And it was Max Verstappen who won the first sprint race of the season, and then it's Lewis Hamilton in P2. Finally, Mercedes have got a podium, and it's all thanks to Lewis Hamilton. And Toto Wolff, he's got a smile on his face, and we Brits have all got a smile on our faces, and let's hope that that will be Mercedes' pace somewhere in the future of the season. Then it's Sergio Perez in P3, Charles Leclerc in P4, and his teammate Carlos Sainz in 5th. Then it's the two McLarens, Norris and Piastri. George Russell with a disappointing P8, but at least he gets the 1 point, it's better than nothing. And how heartbreaking to see Guan Yu Zhou so close of getting a point in his career this season, and what a way to do it at his home race. I did put a bet if he gets a point in the Chinese Grand Prix, I would get myself a Stake F1 team hat and t-shirt. And you know what, as he's in the top 10, it's close enough. I'm definitely buying it, because that could be a proper race result. If it wasn't a sprint race, I bet he could have got points, but the question is, did the sprint race get in the way? I think it might have did. And Kevin Magnussen, he was P10. But it does give a big opportunity from one of the drivers from the lower teams to be able to get into Q3. And it was Nico Hulkenberg who got P9, and it was through to Q3 in the Haas. And in P10, you're not going to believe this, was Valtteri Bottas at the Stake F1 team. They did it twice in a row, getting into Q3, and he's beaten an Aston Martin. And who would it be but Lance Stroll? Because I'll be surprised if it was Fernando Alonso, and it's not a surprise that is Lance Stroll. He was a much slower driver than compared to all the other drivers in the top teams. But anyway, well done to Valtteri Bottas and the Stake F1 team. And it's high five for Max Verstappen. He's got 5 poles in the first 5 races, and what a record for Max Verstappen to achieve something that I can't think of any F1 drivers achieved. 5 poles in the first 5 races of the season. What a result. 3/10 back is Sergio Perez, and he did really well for second. It's a 1-2 for Red Bull Racing. And then, whoa, for Fernando Alonso, he's in P3 qualifying. Alonso. Then it's Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri in the McLarens. Then it's Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz in the Ferraris. Then it's George Russell in 8th in the Mercedes, Nico Hulkenberg in P9, and Valtteri Bottas in P10. And it's lights out and away we go for Fernando Alonso with an epic start, overtaking Sergio Perez and almost Max Verstappen. And he was at the same place Lando Norris was the day before, so it was another deja vu. Well, almost, but this time with Alonso's years of experience at Shanghai, he was able to keep the car on the track and not off it, and he still kept second place. And what the Suchi is going on with Lance Stroll, and how on earth, and what was he thinking, taking his eyes off Daniel Ricciardo under virtual safety car by concentrating on the cars on the right, when he was not concentrating on where he should be by the cars that are literally in front of him. You see, Fernando Alonso, he braked while trying to not crash into the back of the Ferrari, and Oscar Piastri, he tried to avoid him, so did George Russell and Daniel Ricciardo, who tapped the back of Oscar Piastri. And then Lance Stroll, for some reason, moved his head to the right, not bothered to concentrate on the cars in front, accelerated a little and crashed at the back of Daniel Ricciardo, and Ricciardo's car was so damaged he had to retire. And Lance Stroll, for some reason, even though he should know that was his fault, he called Ricciardo an idiot. Why? I don't know. And he says, I don't know what happens, but I bet he does. And as a result, he was given a 10-second penalty. And he still thought it was ridiculous, but that's going to be very hard for us to believe. And the penalties just keep on coming. Like Kevin Magnussen, he had a 10-second penalty on lap 27, contacting Yuki Tsunoda's rear right wheel and giving him a puncture at turn 6. And that was it for RB, and both cars were out of the race. And Logan Sargent, he had a 10-second penalty for overtaking another car on the safety car, and it was really hard to tell if he did because it was so close to call, and I don't know why Williams didn't check if he might have done, and they could have told him, but for some reason they didn't. And the pit stops Red Bull were making were mega quick. they were able to get a double stop so perfect in total. The pit stop time for Sergio and Max Verstappen was Max Verstappen 2.1 seconds, Sergio Perez 2 dead in a total of 4.1 seconds. That is even quicker than the double stack on the 1000th Grand Prix when Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas did it, and it was absolutely fantastic. Red Bull are still dominating their pit stops, and they've had 4 pit stops in the race, and the other 2 pit stops that Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen made. Max Verstappen an epic 1.9, Sergio Perez another 2 seconds. And for the first time, the Stake F1 team have a perfect pit stop, especially for Guan Yu Zhou. What a way to do it at his home Grand Prix. The pit stop that Guan Yu Zhou made was 3 seconds, and that was the slowest he got. What an epic pit stop, and what a great result Stake F1 have done to solve their pit stop problems. That is great to see. And on lap 49, Fernando Alonso lost it on the last corner, but kept the car on the track and still was able to overtake Lewis Hamilton a few corners later. Wow! How does he do that? I mean, in qualifying, Carlos Sainz lost it and crashed into the barrier. Fernando Alonso, he just kept the car on the track without losing his rear end. That is amazing performance. How does he do that? I mean, it's like he keeps learning from every driver's mistake, like Lando Norris on the first lap. He was able to keep the car on the track, not off. I gotta say, Fernando Alonso really does know how to drive a Formula 1 car better than any F1 driver I can see on the F1 grid. And Max Verstappen, of course, he's the one dominating, but Alonso, he's the one with the most experience. And it was Max Verstappen who wins the Chinese Grand Prix, and it was Lando Norris with an epic P2 for McLaren. And what a way to make up that sprint race he had. And he only finished 5th in the sprint race, but P2 in the actual race itself, that's a good way to make up. And he has the most podiums than anyone without a race win in Formula 1. I was hoping it'd be the Chinese Grand Prix, hoping to be like Nico Rosberg back in 2012 when he got his first win in Formula 1 with all those podiums, but it's such a shame that did not happen to the same thing for Lando Norris, but hopefully his time will come. And it's a double podium for Red Bull because it's Sergio Perez in P3. Then it was Charles Leclerc in P4, and Carlos Sainz for the first time ever has been beaten by his own teammates this season. Then it was George Russell in P6. Fernando Alonso, a good result in P7. Then it's Oscar Piastri in P8. Lewis Hamilton, a great comeback from him from 18th on the grid to P9. And it's Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas in P10. And the cheers were not just for Max Verstappen, Lando Norris and Sergio Perez. It's also for Guan Yu Zhou for not disappointing his fans at the Chinese Grand Prix. There were massive cheers. They were cheering like mad. And Guan Yu Zhou, he was in tears. He was so happy and proud of himself, taking part in a sport he loves so much. And doing it at his home race was such an amazing feeling to him. And Guan Yu Zhou, you are the hero of China, and I definitely feel like we should choose him as driver of the day. And that's it for my review of the Chinese Grand Prix. And next up is the hot sunny Miami Grand Prix in the USA, the first of the American Grand Prix. And keep a lookout for Ferrari because they're going from red to blue. Now that is something new, but let's find out to see who will win at Miami. Well, possibly Max Verstappen, but who knows? Anything can happen in Formula 1. See you next time.